Ready?
Yep.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American...
Cheer perversity.
From the industrial wastelands...
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it? Whether we're young or old.
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
Hi.
Hello.
To the show.
Hey there.
American Greed Factory. Starting late.
That's Nathan. This is Conlon.
Andrew. We're all anti-Google now.
Tonight we're going to discuss cutting and why it's for you. Yeah, it's a bunch of fucking technical stuff I hate and I don't understand. But here we are. It's September.
Oh, can you either sit up or move your camera down slightly?
I can't see myself at all.
Oh, okay.
No.
You're just like it's like the top of your face is just hanging out at the bottom of the screen. You're good now.
Look now. Okay, here we are. You can see me in all my glory. All 600 pounds of me sitting here. As a matter of fact, I had cut my foot cut off this week. No, I'm just kidding. Dying from the feet up. So here we are. Let's see what's going on this week. UAW's on strike.
And
Not me, but General Motors. So that's been going on for a week now. So that'll be we'll see what happens there.
I was surprised to see that the UAW officials are actually stealing money too. So
Yeah, that was. I mean, I don't know. I've been around 21 years, and I always heard stuff like that, but it was always like, oh, just sour grapes, and somebody didn't get what they wanted. And never really totally bought into that, and then they start. 4 years ago, a bunch of guys from Chrysler. I mean, I think we talked about this before. Get indicted and actually have to go to prison, and now we're raiding homes and we're finding money, and so I don't know. Of course, I'm not getting any information. I mean, you can ask, but they're not gonna be like, "Yes, Nathan, this is what we've done. Here's our documents." So the FBI is asking questions. I just hope it's isolated, and I mean, the people I know and talk to and trust, I don't get the vibe they're corrupt, but then again, I'm not sitting on the council, so I'm just driving a forklift. So I don't know what's going on there. But, there's always been that talk, but I always assumed it was sour grapes, and I was never really involved enough in it I go to a few meetings and I vote on the important stuff, and, but again, I don't sit on the council meetings. I don't go hang out on weekends, and I don't, my time away from work is my time. So I'm not deeply involved with the union. I don't really have people got to know their limitations and their abilities, and directly engaging people and arguing with the company all day is not my strong suit. There are some people that are really good at it, and I'm glad they're there. But for me, it's just all I can do to work, do my job, and come home and carry my lunch pail home, and that's it. I mean, I hope it's not just widespread rampant corruption. I've never seen it with my own eyes. I've heard stories, but you always hear shit. So I don't know why people do that, because it seems like you always get caught. So some of these guys, these international people, they're making $200,000 a year plus a pension, essentially for working out contract law. I don't know why you'd screw that gig up, just steal money. It's like you're pretty well compensated for what you're doing.
well,
all those guys started out as guys like me working on a shipping dock somewhere, and if you're moving up to that and you're smart enough to do it, I don't know why you'd fuck up.
Well, they always told us, especially after the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, after Enron, when I was in accounting classes at UNI, it's basically like, if you ever embezzle money or steal money, you'll be caught. It's always how long you can cover your ass until you're caught. Because you're supposedly looking for the people that only want to control one side of it and never take vacations and never let anybody else touch the books. Because that's like a sure sign that they're taking money from you.
Oh, okay.
Because as soon as they go on vacation and somebody else gets a hold of the books for any amount of time, they'll be like, oh yeah, why is all this money missing that we're supposed to have? This doesn't match. And it's like, oh yeah, because that person's got a nice thing going. So,
Yeah, I mean, the way life is, the way I look at it in the long term, we already got a clock running anyway. None of us are going to live forever. I don't want another clock running like in the corner of that one saying it's, 4 years until you get caught and lose everything. Like, no, I'm not. What I'm saying is I'm not corrupt and a criminal out of a moral choice. I'm not a corrupt and a criminal because I know I'll get caught. So I don't understand the mentality of people that think that's like, yeah, I'll be the first guy to get away with this. And maybe people do. I don't know, but it's not a game I'd ever want to play.
well, I'm sure they don't want to advertise that people get away with it, because then more people might try. But
true.
yeah, doesn't. Yeah, I don't think it really pays either, because if you're already stressed out from your job to begin with, and then add the extra layer of like, oh yeah, I'm secretly stealing millions of dollars from the company, and I gotta hide it unless I go to jail.
I hate my job. I know what'll make me happy. I'll embezzle money and do things I can't afford, and that'll be salve for the wound, right? That always works.
Is that the old saying, hookers and blow heal all wounds?
Yeah, that's how it works. If you're in a bad spot, okay, listen to me, kids. Let's get my son in here. Just have some wisdom here. If you're in a bad spot and life's treating you bad, the first thing you should do is the most destructive thing you could imagine, because that'll make it all better. I mean, maybe not the most destructive thing, which is killing yourself, but yeah, I don't. I've never got that, but then again, I'm not one of those ego guys with just a constant hard on and just I'm going to throw everything down the toilet that I've worked for sex or, And some of the stuff these people were getting indicted for was pretty petty. It's not like there was millions of dollars or something. It was just like buying Gucci handbags and custom-made golf clubs. It's like, yeah, I'm not throwing my pension away over golf clubs. But yeah, I don't. Mum's the word on what specifically is going on, and of course now I've got this national strike that's got everyone's attention away from that. And I mean, I think it's also kind of convenient that the Trump Justice Department is initiating these investigations literally a week before the contract is up. So I don't think that's a coincidence either. I mean, I'm not Alex Jones here, but I think there's a lot of balls bouncing out there, and it's going to be hard to guess what's going to happen. But I hope it works out, because it'll definitely, this has direct bearing on my life. So once it affects me, I care. I'm all in.
Well, nobody's going to ask you to strike on behalf of the workers at GM or anything, are they?
Well, the U.S. national auto contracts are weird because it's called pattern bargaining. So basically, all three contracts for the big three expire simultaneously, September 15th. And before that, GM UAW will nominate a strike target. And what that is that's the company we feel is in the best position. And when their contract's up, if we can't come to a deal by the deadline, we can either extend it if we're close, or if we're a million miles apart, then we just go on strike. And this year, GM was designated as the strike target, and they will be the ones on strike. And then once they settle, whatever they settle for, it'll have to go to their membership for ratification. And that same deal will have to be pretty much 90% implemented at the other two companies. So there's a business advantage to being the strike target and a union advantage to being the strike target, because if like you can, if Ford was the strike target and they just agreed to everything or strategically agreed to things that will put GM in a bad place, they do that, and that's why they do it that way. We have negotiated outside the pattern. I think the 2008 financial stuff when Chrysler went bankrupt, I think Chrysler had an out-of-pattern negotiation, but Ford and GM had a pattern, and pretty much since then, there's always been a few things. They've reopened contracts and changed some things, but whatever one company gets, the other two get. It always comes down to that. So that's what's going on now. If they go through ratification and vote it down, and they have to go back and bargain, then because the pattern swings both ways. Because then Ford could come forward and say, well, we'll give you everything you want just to fuck GM into having to accept that too. And then, so it's three-dimensional chess. It's always that. And, GM has put a giant bullseye on themselves because they closed plants under moratorium of closing in violation of the last contract. So they're in court for that, for breach of contract with the UAW. They've done things with temporary workers, with hiring too many of them and keeping them on beyond any reasonable limit. And the other two companies aren't doing that by and large. GM kind of put a bullseye on themselves, and GM's bought $400 million, $500 million worth of their own stock back, just giving it away as within the company as bonuses. Meanwhile, trying to put 17,000 people out of work. Yeah, they're just they're making all the wrong moves. But I hate to beat an old drum, but to all my auto worker friends that just thought Trump was the guy, it's like, yeah, his corruption has spread. Everyone thinks they can do this shit, and guess what? You're not in the country club. I know you might think you are, but you're not. They don't like guys like us in the country club. So for everyone who's working guy, especially the unionized workers that thought this guy was going to be their fucking Jesus, well, I think this is an effect. I can make a pretty effective argument that this is corporate America thinking, well, fuck, the president's doing this, we can do whatever we want to.
I get the stock buyback because pretty much that's what all the companies, like bigger companies, did with their tax breaks that Trump gave them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, why not just end up lowering your debt profile overall? Why give it away?
Because you're greedy. Because you're good. Because that debt profile, you think you can fuck your employees and cover that nut by raising their health care costs. You can put people out of work. You can lower costs. You can outsource jobs. Yeah, that would be if you were balancing a family budget, which is essentially what a giant corporation is kind of doing. Yeah, you would absolutely take that money and reinvest it and pay things down. These people, they all, it's expensive to golf country club. Owning 4 houses takes a lot of money. That's what those people are going to do, and that's what they
maids for each of those houses.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want a maid, domestics, oh my God, I can't tell you how important that is now to have domestics. And
your own personal doctor to prescribe you limitless amounts of pain medication that you sell on the black market.
Or have your maid pick up if you're Rush Limbaugh.
And you also need personal trainers that can keep their mouth shut.
And other personal trainers that can keep their mouth open.
Because everyone wants Diane, the yoga lady, to come with private lessons, and that's not cheap. So
one's got the cocaine and the other one's got the pussy. That's all we're gonna say.
Yeah,
she bent it like Beckham.
If you want someone that can do a handstand and practice fellatio at an Olympic level, that you're going to have to take some of that stock money and invest it in wellness.
Here, I'll give you 5 shares of GM stock. Clean yourself up with that.
Wipe yourself with that. So that's what we got there. Strike update. Let's see if we can read this out on air. Yeah, so that's what we got going on there.
Did Ford make just about as much money as GM did this year, or did GM do better?
GM did a lot. GM's the most profitable auto company in the world right now. Tentative agreement at a rally tomorrow, so maybe the strike will be over this week. I've heard that 3 times. No, Ford has made a lot of money, and Ford makes more money in the high profit centers. F-150, of course, Lincoln Navigator, and Lincoln products in general, because they have another one out there called the Aviator, I think. For some reason, $80,000 SUVs are flying off the shelves. We weren't ready for it, but Ford has they've made a lot of money, but they've spent a lot of money. They've bought 4 electric car companies, 2 battery companies, and they're completely developing in-house their own self-driving technology. So they've spent $18 billion the last year just in that alone. So Ford's made money but spent money. And Chrysler is Chrysler. I don't know what they do. They make some cool stuff, and they always seem to be on the rocks. Chrysler is essentially padding out Fiat's pension obligations, just like they did for Daimler. I get that vibe. That's why all these European companies buy Chrysler. It's like, oh, we're 70% in the hole in our pension obligations. How are we going to fill that hole? Oh, go to America and just fleece them, because that's a endless supply of money until it isn't. But yeah, so that's the auto updates. I thought they'd go to the wire. I didn't see this coming, but a 1-week strike is that's doable. When the thing is, when you get into those like 6-week, 8-week, 4 months, that kind of stuff, that's when everyone's bleeding money, the workers, the company, because it's depending on what source you believe, this is costing General Motors upwards of $300 million a day just to have total stop of operations. And there's also about 2 million people, if this went on for any length of time, would be out of work. All the suppliers, the vendors, and it would start to affect us too, because sometimes we buy our parts from the same companies, and suddenly if some of those companies, if a third of their business just vaporizes, well, it's like, we don't need to buy more from you, we just need to buy the same amount. So they're going to start making serious cutbacks. So it's we'll see what happens. We'll see what this tentative agreement is. Because see, what GM was doing was throwing a lot of upfront money out there, but if you looked at the cost increases they wanted for healthcare over a 4-year deal, you were losing money. It's what you call a concessionary. Any contract where you give back and don't gain is concessionary. Now, you can argue, well, we upped their wages, but we upped their healthcare costs, and they ended up losing money because they're making less now because they're paying for healthcare. Well, okay, that's concessionary. When you're reporting mile-high profits, it's kind of tough sell to have a concessionary contract. But that's how 90% of American business works, though. The auto industry and the government are just weird aberrations that still have unions in them. And, once they solve that problem, we'll all be on the same page.
Well, I know our last UAW contract was a concessionary contract because we didn't gain anything out of it. So,
yeah, a lot of it's going that way, and that's got to change. That's because it's been that way since really the 80s. There were some big gains made in the 90s, like big money gains, but those were that was also a high-flying economy too. I don't know what this economy is right now.
The paper tiger economy.
Yeah,
it's a dead horse that's almost finished the race, but it might fall at any moment.
This is called the dying empire economy. But everything's concessionary around healthcare because the auto industry, the UAW cannot slay the healthcare demon. That has to be done at a federal level, and you have to do it in such a way where I mean, it would require not only a huge commitment of money and responsible government oversight, but technological developments that we haven't made yet. Because the thing is, like, a lot of people run out and say, we should just have national health care like all these other countries do. And it's like, yeah, and those countries are absorbing the same cost structure we are. So it's bankrupting them too. So it's like we got to find a way to beat the cost out of it too, and that's where everything gets flat-footed. Because it's like, yeah, sure, we can have Medicare for all, and it's like, yeah, and if people are paying anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 a year more in federal taxes, well, they're not ahead as a result of that. They're just not being bankrupted if their kid breaks their arm, but they're creating a lot of, you're just slowing the economy down to a standstill because no one has any extra money. So that's I don't know what they're going to do with healthcare. Everyone's taking a crack at it, and no one's come up with a winning plan.
Well, what's the life on a drug patent? Like, is it lifetime as long as somebody keeps producing it, or is it a certain fixed amount of years?
I don't know if it's negotiated or if it's standard, but I know.
I think it's like 20 years, but it starts at development. So you can spend 15 years in development, and here you have 5 years of exclusive medicine rights.
So what if the U.S. government got into the drug making business?
Well, they already are through subsidies.
Well, yes, they already are through subsidies, but I'm talking about like actually taking control of active drug patents after a certain period of time, giving the first 5 or 10 years of active drug selling for the companies that actually did the R&D and the research, but after that taking control of it and controlling the cost.
Oh, you mean like a national?
Nationalizing the drug care.
Nationalization has never worked here. I don't know if it might if we didn't have types of people government we do, because we had we did that with the airlines for 4 decades, and that's why it costs $3,000 to fly to London in the 1960s and stuff. Their cost it was all subsidized. So any losses were covered by the government, so the cost just ballooned up. But But airline nationalization is kind of a weird animal because airplanes are basically military equipment, just adapted for civilian use. So I don't know how that would work. I mean, we're going to have to try things like that though, because doing what we're doing is just going to eat. It's a few people or some people are going to benefit, but it's just basically going to eat this country.
Well, I mean, you're talking about drugs like insulin, Viagra, and all these antidepressants, and like Lipitor, and all these drugs that are long past or long since been, they had their heyday in their first 5 or 10 years on the market. But insulin's like the highest it's ever been, and it's still really cheap to produce, and anybody can make it for the most part. So why doesn't the government
homebrew insulin?
I mean, it's something that,
bathtub insulin.
Even the creator of it, at one point, was more about helping the people of it. He wasn't exactly, for the profit of it necessarily. That's been a lot of the cures that came around the turn of the century. It wasn't for the profit of it. It was for the cure and helping people out. And now it's become something entirely different once a corporation gets a hold of it and tries to make a profit out of it, or at least more profit out of it.
Oh, I don't know much about medical debt to tell you, like whether medicinal cost is the number one thing or not.
No, I'm just using it as an example to bring some facet of the cost of medicine or medical treatment down, because obviously then you also have doctors, nurses, all the technology you need to run a hospital.
Oh, you want to bring costs down? Well, we'll just do it not for profit.
Yeah.
They end to run that way.
Well, yes, hospitals don't have shareholders anymore. There's no corporate oversight of hey, we have 80 hospitals managed by this one corporation for profit. No, that shit stops. There's no need to profit off other people's misery and suffering. That's not. I mean, if you want to do that, open a prison for profit. Oh wait, that's
and also, the government already does this. It's called the fucking military. You get free health care if you're in the military.
Yes, and that's
it's not always good. It's always students.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the VA, and we've all seen those stories. But yeah, no one's going bankrupt over it either. So.
But it's also like I don't know like where the medical debt is incurred precisely. It's all just like people going to the emergency room and getting $80,000 in equipment, X-rays, and all that shit for a tummy ache, or if it's like systemic long-term health that needs to be checked, or
Well, it's the same accounting problem as, say you have a store that's failing and they're hemorrhaging money, i.e. a hospital, because hospitals generally don't make a lot of money because people don't pay their bills, they don't pay them on time. It's not a good fixed income you can count on at all times. So you transfer all the costs, all your overhead, onto every single product you sell. So a cup of Jell-O that cost you 50 cents, you now charge $600 for, because now that's the cost of providing that Jell-O. Because you're trying to balance out all your loss margins and make it so you actually look like you're making money, when in terms you're not making any money. You might have that $50 million CAT scan machine down there.
so once again we're tap dancing to lie to the shareholders to pretend we're making money when we're not.
Basically, I mean, if you look at the medical debt in this country, a lot of people aren't paying their hospital bills.
I've never like I said I don't know. I haven't looked at the medical debt. I don't know what it is.
Well,
I
I
don't.
mean, it's not as bad as student loan debt, car debt, and house debt, but it's definitely. I mean, people are.
All I know is it's ruining people's lives for being sick.
Yeah, because Nathan, you even talked about this when your son broke his arm. You know, like what, almost a year ago now, or was it less than that?
Actually, exactly a year ago today.
So, like you said, the cost incurred if he didn't have insurance and that would be upwards of what, $6,000 or $8,000 for what he had done.
$50,000
$50,000.
based on the bill. Well, see, I get the whole bill,
Yeah.
and I get the write down from, because there's just something called write down, and then there's like insurance paid. So actually, insurance paid, it was about $6,000.
Yeah.
Well, that was with $40,000 of write downs. And I had paid, like $100 for the whole deal, but that's what they're trying. That's what we're on strike for too, is because they don't want to. They want to like, oh, you should pay 10% of that or something.
But speaking of medical benefits, I made buttermilk fried chicken this week.
How'd that work?
Really good. I was somewhat disappointed, but it wasn't like it tasted bad or anything like that. It was that my expectations for the crunchiness of it was like way too high, and it was all in my head.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. How did you cook it? I guess.
Fried it in canola oil.
Well, I'm sorry. What did you like? Pressure cook it? Did you do it? Deep fry it in a pan? Like what?
Yeah, shallow pan, canola oil, frying. No, it's a recipe that. Have you heard of the Chef Show? It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
There's that movie, The Chef, and
Yeah,
he's just
yeah.
made a TV show. It's not a fiction. It's just a TV
Yeah. It's
show.
just him like cooking different dishes.
So in the first, I guess it's technically the second half of the first season. There's an episode with Seth Rogen on it,
Okay.
and there's 2 recipes in it. One's for some dish that I will never make because it has 4,000 ingredients. And then the other one was buttermilk fried chicken, which was real fucking simple. It's like, because on the show they don't like, there's not like a resource to go to. It's like, here's the cooking instructions.
Yeah.
They just make it, and then I had to figure out the rest.
Oh,
Now they do a little thing that was like before they do a dish, they have a little claymation. It shows like the chef truck like bouncing around and shit, and you'll see the dish, and then like the truck will bounce around and the dish explodes into all the ingredients, and it points out all the ingredients. So this is buttermilk fried chicken. So the way they started it is they had a vacuum sealing machine, and they put the chicken, the raw chicken in buttermilk, and they sealed it up. Now they did it that way is because they otherwise you'd have to let it sit overnight.
yeah.
If you vacuum seal it, you can basically like 2 hours you're ready to go. So it basically just sped up that process. So I left it in buttermilk overnight. And then you take it out, and then one of the key things is you need to season the flour.
Yeah.
So you just it's just salt and pepper. Salt, pepper, and flour.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then you take out the butter, you take it out of the buttermilk, you shake off the buttermilk, and you just kind of roll it around the flour and get as much as you want on it, and then you kind of shake off the excess flour, and then you put it on the rack, ready to be fried.
Oh, they only did one layer.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, you can do
Well,
multiple.
have you seen Binging with Babish, like his videos and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Where he does a double coat,
Yeah.
but he also did like a brine buttermilk. So he did his overnight in the bag, not vacuum sealed. But then he double coats it. He does the buttermilk. He shakes it off a little bit, but not a lot. Puts it in one thing, dredges it, and then brings it back, and then dredges it again. But then using one hand to do the dredging, that way only one hand gets
Yeah.
dirty.
Yeah. Wet hand, dry hand.
Yeah. But his didn't look too bad, but he also had like cayenne and paprika and stuff in his.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking about. Because like when you bite into it, you can kind of taste the salt and pepper from the flour. I was like, oh, that's how you can make spicy fried chicken. Is you just put some cayenne pepper in with the flour, and then you got spicy chicken. So yeah, then I just fry it up till like it's about golden brown,
Yep.
and then you put it in the oven. It didn't give me a temperature, so I looked up the internet and they said 375, and I had it in there for 10 minutes and it was cooked. It was probably already cooked when you fried it, but you're supposed
It's a
to.
safety.
Yeah. And then it was like what the buttermilk does basically, it just makes the chicken just eventually like kind of fall off the bone, like it's really juicy.
Oh, okay.
Now the thing I was disappointed by is like when I bit into it. So in my mind, when I was watching that episode, with like they bit into the fried chicken, it's like imagine if you just took like a stack of like 10 Pringles and bit into it. That's the crunch I had in my mind. That was not the crunch I got, but it still tasted great. The only thing I didn't do is that at
Saltine cracker crunch.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I didn't do is like they took like basil and thyme and like ripped up the leaves and they kind of tossed it in salt at the end of it, and I just ate it like after it was cooked, so it was like totally fine. But like, yeah, I didn't salt it afterwards, but I was. Because I was telling him how now I've been excessively salting things because after watching the show, it's like Jesus Christ, that's a lot of fucking salt. They're just like, and
that's what this is for.
no, that's just to kill flies. But yeah, like they use so much salt. Like they're talking to one guy. It's like, yeah, if it doesn't taste good, just keep adding salt and butter until it does.
I'm not like a huge fan of like oversalting things because it just fucking ruins it. Because all you can taste is salt, so I wouldn't think that'd be a good thing.
Well, usually like when they're cooking things, it's large portions to feed like 10 people.
Oh, okay.
So they have it's like a little container of it's like half a container of salt, and like they're over the course of it they use it in cooking and then in seasoning afterwards. But yeah, it seems like a lot of salt, but like compared to like the actual volume of stuff you're cooking, it's not that much. But like I typically don't add that much salt to things, but I've just been adding too much salt to things lately just to see where the line is.
Salt line.
I mean, because I just made Philly cheesesteak at home for the first time last week. And that turned out... I didn't use the Cheese Whiz approach, because I saw a guy make a vegetarian Cheese Whiz. Well, it was like carrots. There's like this soy cheese thing that makes it taste like cheese. And then a couple other things. I think it was like fucking sweet potato and something else. I didn't do that because it was a food processor and a bunch of shit, and I'm like, I can't find half of this shit in this fucking town, so I'm not gonna do vegetarian Cheese Whiz. But I did.
Why were you interested in vegetarian Cheese Whiz in the first place?
I just was kind of interested because it's like, really, you put all that together, it tastes like Cheese Whiz. That's really interesting.
I'm gonna say no.
No, I just wanted.
I'm gonna say people make this and it looks like Cheese Whiz, and they pretend it tastes like Cheese Whiz.
Well, anyway, when his girlfriend tasted, because he made the provolone version and the vegetarian Cheese Whiz version bullshit, and she liked the Cheese Whiz version better than the provolone, but he liked the provolone better than the Cheese Whiz. But then I was looking up cheats online because I wanted to know what kind of meat to get because I wasn't really sure about that. So I ended up getting ribeye steak and slicing it really thin and cooking that. Just salt and pepper, a little bit of olive oil with a skillet, and then at the end they recommended that you mix American cheese and provolone because you get more of the meltiness and the nacho cheese flavor a little bit with the American cheese, but then also the provolone flavor, but the American cheese melts way better, so it looks better on there and it actually is gooier. And it was way gooier, I would say I would definitely choose a different bun though next time because it was too much fucking bread and not enough other shit between the pepper, the onion, and the meat. But
If you're cutting up ribeye steaks, you're not far off the mark of goodness.
well, because the recommendations, because it said to just put it in the freezer for half an hour and then slice it very thin. But it was
Yeah.
like, well, if your butcher has a meat slicer, just get ribeye steak and have him slice it. And so I did that, but the guy gave me the oddest look, like, why the fuck are you slicing ribeye steak? Like, he asked me twice if that's really what I wanted to do. I'm like, well, I'm paying for it, so it's not like I'm gonna...
Well, did you ask him what meat you're supposed to use for Philly cheesesteak?
He didn't know that's what I was doing.
Well, then why does he give a fuck? I don't know what you use for it. We'll slice up that steak. Why the fuck would you do that? Who fucking cares? Nobody knows.
Well, because the other, if you wanted to go cheaper than ribeye, you're supposed to get boneless short rib, because it has about the same fat content.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find that at Hy-Vee, so... But no, it's interesting about buttermilk chicken, because I was actually thinking about making that at some point. Because we have an iron skillet, I would just do it in with oil. I don't know if I'd... Is canola oil supposed to be the better oil to fry it in?
That's the
or-
oil they use in the show. You can
Okay.
use other ones. You can fucking use peanut oil if you want.
Okay. No, because I only have olive oil and like fucking coconut oil and shit, so...
Just different oils cook at different temperatures. Like I think olive oil has a high burn point. I'm not sure if that's important or not, but if you fried stuff in there before and enjoyed it, then who gives a shit? Although, like, I don't know, canola oil is like way cheaper. You can get like a whole
Oh
thing.
yeah, you can get a whole fucking like 5-gallon thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to pour like a half an inch of
olive oil.
olive oil to fry chicken. That's kind of seems way excessive.
I'm gonna do truffle oil.
Fried chicken, $400.
But it tastes amazing.
Yeah, it was actually really cheap to make it too, because I used to like buying steaks and it's like here's 2 steaks $13, and then I bought like it was like a 10-pack of drums, and it was just like $5, and I was like, oh shit, I should just like start frying a bunch more things. Like, who fucking cares? And like the canola oil was on sale for like $2.50 for like the name brand stuff, and I guess if you're really into it, you could save the oil and then like use it again next time, but.
No, I mean, do you like chicken wings?
Yeah.
Budweiser makes a wing sauce that's actually pretty good. Like, so you just get like the little drummy things, not like the big ones you got, but there's like it's like a blue package or whatever, and like the chicken has like a fucking graduation hat on for some reason. I have no idea why that's a thing, but like we get a pack of those. It's like $5. You get like 14 wings or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you just like you soak them or put them in a Ziploc bag and then shake them, put them on a tinfoil rack that's very well oiled, and then just keep basting them and turning them, basting them and turning them. It takes about half an hour or 40 minutes, but it's probably the best wings I've ever had. just grilling wings with cheap barbecue sauce or from Hy-Vee or whatever. So I don't even know if Walmart sells Budweiser barbecue sauce though. I think they probably do.
Maybe, I don't know.
You could get beef tallow to fry things with.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
get some
that's-
lard.
No, beef tallow is actually better. Because your body like knows what to do with it.
Oh, instead of
It's like vegetable oil and stuff. The only reason they say, because everyone used to just use like fat, and then once we became Corn Nation, everyone started using vegetable oil, which is but like the levels of obesity and heart disease, it never went down. So it's like, well, get rid of the beef tallow was the problem, and I forget where you can get that. I don't fry a lot because I don't like the smell of it in the house, but there's places around here that just like, like those super barbecue places, they'll say right on there, like, our French fries are made in beef tallow. It always tastes better. It's like, oh, this is like an old school French fry.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever had a French fry that was just rendered or cooked in beef fat.
Oh yeah, you can. It's expensive to buy, but you can get it.
No.
It also lasts a lot longer too because it stays very stable at high temperatures. It doesn't break down, smoke as much.
I used to use lard to make tortillas, but then I got good enough where I could just use it all butter, because it's easier to roll out if you use lard.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a mix of like half lard, half butter. But if you get good at making tortillas, then like to figure out like kind of where the sticky level is, like get the right kind of sticky with just butter, then you're doing like, it's like, all right, I'm pretty good at this.
Well, I know all because there's that taco documentary on Netflix or the miniseries. Like I watched the first 3 episodes of that because it's basically food porn. You just want tacos afterwards.
Yeah.
But between watching them make carnitas, which I guess the right way to make carnitas is have specially $4,000 copper kettles that are only made in Mexico, and they have like 3 of those with like beef tallow and lard in most of them. But they make all because they had pastor tacos, carnitas, and then they had street tacos. But each one of them, the tortillas, every time they made them, doesn't matter if it was corn or flour or whatever they made them out of, always lard, never anything else. And that was always, like, everybody's like, oh, tortillas are amazing. I'm like, well, I guess if I ever make homemade tortillas, I'm making it with lard. So, I don't know, would you even get that at any store now?
Yeah, yeah. It's like a big square block. It's in a pale blue case. It just says fucking lard on it.
Okay, I've never actually looked for it, so I didn't know.
Yeah, it's around the butter. It'll sometimes be around where like where you'd find like carnitas. Like sometimes it's around there. But yeah, it's just a big block. It looks like like you get a like 4 sticks of butter.
Yeah.
It's like that exact same size, but it's just a giant block of lard.
1 pound block of lard.
Or you can get the buckets too. Yeah, they make buckets of lard too.
I don't know if I have room for a bucket in my refrigerator. Or do you have to refrigerate it?
No.
Yeah, I guess.
There's so much.
It's in the refrigerated section, but yeah, I guess the buckets of lard are not refrigerated. But yeah, it's like one of those things. It's somewhat impenetrable, or it's hard to go bad.
Well, it's got like animal cellulose in it, so it can go rancid on you, but it's also got so much salt in it. That's why that's why you have a butter dish. You know, you just put it next to your toaster or whatever. I mean, you don't leave it out for a month, but if you're using like a quarter stick a week or something, yeah, it's going to be fine because it's at room temperature.
Well, it's the same thing with like eggs and shit, where it's like most people in some countries leave it out on the counter and then you put it in the fridge.
We're the only country in the world that refrigerates eggs.
Huh.
They don't do that anywhere else. It doesn't, because you're cooking them.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You're not. Yeah, they're full of salmonella. No one's saying just pop the top on the egg and drink it room temperature. But yeah, you get like farm fresh eggs here at the egg stands. That's right by the side of the road, handing them to you.
I've been cocky with how I've been breaking my eggs lately. I've been doing the one-handed thing. You ever do that? Yeah, you just hit it on hit it. I think they always prefer like it be a flat surface. I guess that's to like preserve the yolk or something. But I just do it on the edge of the pan. I could do both, but I usually get it right if I do it at the edge of the pan. Yeah, you just hit it and then just kind of like open it up with one hand and drop it out.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if you break it wrong, that's where you gotta start digging into the egg as it cooks to get all the eggshells out of it. Like, fuck!
Yeah, usually I don't break an egg well enough with 2 hands and not get shell in it half the time, so...
I know around the holidays we like deviled eggs. And I try to get the best eggs I can for cooking. And but one thing I learned about like just free range or real eggs you buy, so like from chickens from farmers, those are harder than hell to shell. No matter how much salt you put in the water to boil them to make deviled eggs, but the real cheap eggs, the shells just come right off. Must be antibiotics or something. But yeah, 'cause we always got those good eggs for that, and we were trying to make deviled eggs, and it was like, oh my god, we're losing half the egg with every time we shell them.
Do you shock them with ice?
No.
Because that's how I heard like a thing you do, like after you boil it, like put it in like ice water, and then like it'll basically like kind of thermodynamics like thump, away from the shell or whatever.
I might have to try that because we had a real problem with that. Because we always use the technique where you put a lot of salt in when you boil them.
Yeah.
'Cause that breaks down but we didn't do the ice water thing. I might try that.
There's also another one where like you can just like, if you need to boil a bunch of eggs, there's like a way you can put your oven on a low setting and just put like a...
Cook them in the oven?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that, never tried it.
But it was mostly you do that for like just for the quantity of it, because you can fit like 50 eggs in a fucking oven.
The only thing I did different was I cooked bacon. I cooked bacon in the oven once. That's when me and Grayson used to have our own little mini epic meal time. It's like get 4 pounds, and we just like put it in strips and bake it in the oven. It's like, how much bacon can you eat, Grayson? About 3 pounds. He could do about 3 pounds.
That's too much bacon.
That's all he eats, though.
There's no such thing as too much bacon.
Yes.
There's too much food, but don't never blame the bacon.
No, okay, so I think it's more or less the bacon I get to have, which is the shit that it's not necessarily cooked on a griddle and crispy. It's kind of just like between crispy and soggy because it's the inside.
That's
shit.
terrible. It's a crime against humanity.
Yeah, I know. That's the bacon I mostly get all the time, whether it's at Perkins or whatever else. It's never good crispy bacon. It's shitty bacon.
Yeah, if you want crispy bacon, like oven's the best way to do it.
Um,
Although you're gonna have a shit ton of oil on the bottom of your pan, but who gives a shit?
Well, the only time I've cooked bacon in the oven is when we did Little Smokies with honey and brown sugar wrapped in bacon or whatever.
The best way to do is if you have one of those little it's like just a wire rack that like has a little feet on
Yeah.
it that you put you
Like
use
grease
that.
drips down and gets away from it.
That's the best way to do it.
Instead of soaking in the bacon.
Yeah.
Putting it in grease.
You will literally have a gallon. If you do 4 pounds of bacon in the oven, you will literally have. You go to pick that because we had those deep drip pans like you used to make cakes or like this. Yeah, you literally like need 2 hands to hold on to that.
Yeah.
And then I would always dump it and I'd let it get hard and then throw it out in the yard because the rabbits would go crazy over it.
That's kind of fucking weird.
It is
I
weird.
thought rabbits were strict vegetarians. Why did they
Uh,
get
The birds and the rabbits are all over the big chunks of pit
bacon?
pork.
Yeah. Well, because you can cook with bacon grease too. Because I know people add it to recipes to, like liven up the
Yeah,
taste.
we were talking about that like a couple of weeks ago and making because that's what I used to make gravy with.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did better this time, although I think I don't think I used enough milk. And also I think underestimated how much a pound of bacon fat, how much gravy that will make. So I'm not, because I don't think I put enough milk in, because I basically had a pan full of gravy. I was like, and it still needs more milk because it's a little bit too solid because I just was I wasn't trusting the which one was it? I wasn't trusting the milk, so I put too much flour in a little bit, and then
Yeah.
but then as it like started to rest, it started to solidify more. But like had I had more milk, it would have like rested at just the right solid
The right
solid.
viscosity.
Yeah.
You've got too much pork grease in it when it starts to separate. And yeah, but you can cut it out like a stick of butter. Like that's a little much. Roux is hard though. That's like art instead of science. So it's always hard to make that.
Yeah, my wife's always better at making cheese sauces and gravy than I am. I always fuck it up. It's either too runny or too hard or too
Usually
whatever.
pretty good at gravy, but I've had a lot of practice. Studied at the master's feet with Grandma Englehart and that gravy. That was always perfect. And Mom was really good too. Mom was make the same thing.
We made one of our go-to dishes for easy making and easy eating and leftovers that cook really well. Is buffalo mac and cheese. So you just take like canned chicken, Frank's Red Hot sauce, a hot brick of cheese like habanero or jalapeno.
Hey, Colin, I think your mic cut off.
Are you sure?
Oh, now you're back. Yeah, it went really quiet there.
Oh,
It could be just because Andrew's farther away.
can
No,
you
I
hear
could
me?
fine before, and then all of a sudden it just got really quiet.
Oh yeah, well, that could be Skype.
Skype.
So, anyway,
So we watched a movie this week in this compressed episode of American Greed Factory.
Are we gonna skip the comic book we read this week?
No, we just don't have time.
Okay.
it's almost 1 o'clock. Sorry.
So quick, I know Andrew picked this movie because he wanted to defend it. I'm going to be critical of it, so so be forewarned.
I kind of figured you wouldn't like it, so it's okay.
I wouldn't say necessarily I didn't like it. It's just that because one of the things like well, I was thinking about like how it's okay, we're watching Mute. Netflix is Mute.
Yes.
Duncan Jones is Mute.
Yes.
I was thinking it's like this is like hard to call a derisive term because I'm just older now, but it's like it's a movie I'm probably never going to watch again.
Yeah.
But because I'm older now, I just don't watch movies again.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean anything. But I think there's, I don't know. Do you want to defend it first? Or you want me to be
No,
critical
just Go
first?
ahead and tear it apart. I don't care.
Well, there's a lot of things on paper where it's like, because I got to the end, I was just like, eh. And then like as I reflected upon it, it's like no, there's a lot of really good shit in there. It's just that it's like a lot of things that were on paper seem good, but in execution, I just didn't give a shit about. So I think like a good like half of this movie is like him searching for his girlfriend,
Yeah.
and I didn't care for that at all. But like on paper, when you think about it, like it's an Amish guy in this bright future, which is kind of just a really it's generic Blade Runner #5.
Yeah. No,
I know it's not necessarily. I know it's not necessarily kind of. It's more about the character stuff and less about that, but it's still the setting.
And so interestingly set in the same universe as Moon.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Oh yeah, because
Because I saw Sam Rockwell and like there's some hearing going on, but I didn't know if that had anything to do with.
yeah, 'cause those were all the Sam Rockwell clones. They were all saying, "No, I'm him. No, I'm him."
Oh, okay. I didn't,
yeah,
I
it was at
didn't
the
notice that.
restaurant. Yeah.
Oh no, that seems.
The
a
movie
bit
was
more
also
interesting.
marketed as Moon 2 in some countries.
Huh.
Weirdly enough, I don't.
But yeah, it's kind of like this almost man out of time thing where it's like this guy is trying to investigate this thing, in the future. He's Amish, so he doesn't really know how to do it. But it's also one of those things that seemed like, well, if we got the cops involved, this would have been solved in 5 minutes. Because I don't know there are no future cops in this show, but I'm pretty sure the future cops look at some closed circuit television and we'd be done with this. But that's besides the point. Also, there's the whole thing about it's like, okay. So with Amish, like their beliefs, like I don't necessarily like respect the beliefs of the Amish.
no. I don't.
So I don't really care about his struggle where he has to like struggle with his Amish, ideals. Like I don't care because I don't care about them in the first place. So when he gets the bedpost out and it starts beats up an entire gang, I was just laughing. Like this is the stupidest fucking thing. But now it's Alexander Skarsgård, right?
Yes.
That's a really hard role. But I appreciate everyone who did it. I'm glad they killed. What's her name? It's like Nadi.
I don't remember the name. The girl.
It's like Nadira or something.
Yeah, Nadira.
Because she like, well, they didn't act like he acted like she was his girlfriend, but she treated him like he was a puppy.
Yeah, it was kind of a one-sided relationship.
But Paul Rudd in this movie is like pretty amazing. He has a very interesting, complex character, and like when I reflected on it, like it's like that's really fucking good. Like, because I was kind of like immediately tepid about after I finished the movie, but when I thought about it, it's like, okay, what's important about this movie? It's like I don't really care about some of the stuff, but like you look at kind of the intricate character work, is like that's pretty interesting because when you find out, basically towards the end that Paul Rudd is the bad guy essentially. There's not like this, so like in those movies where it's like a cop procedural movie, and like towards the end, like the trustworthy, funny cop friend like ends up being the serial killer, and then like he turns from one-dimensional character to another one-dimensional character, and like the eyes change, and you're all supposed to be like, oh, here. Like when he just like throws him the keys and he looks in the fridge and it's not there, and then she's just laying to this fucking side with some other trash. He doesn't change character. He's the same fucking guy. You just kind of realize like, oh yeah, he is an abusive dickhead and controlling, but he also like loves his daughter, just like in a bad way. I mean, not like the way Duck would have loved her, but
Yeah.
yeah, and he's I don't like pansexual or whatever's going on. Like that's, but he's also kind of like funny and endearing, but he's also abusive and mad all the time, and he's AWOL from this war that we don't really know what's going on because apparently Germany keeps invading places, but they seem to still be allies with the U.S. That's all kind of just in the background. It's never necessarily explained or elaborated on, but it's not necessarily the point of the movie. And then there's the whole thing at the end where it's kind of like, he gets kind of violated at the end where like he surgically gets a voice box implanted in him, and that's kind of interesting, but it's not necessarily like he was spending the whole movie like wishing he could talk. I'm not sure if that was like necessarily a goal of his. And I didn't necessarily see that like because he could talk it was lesser, but he did kind of like lose his whole identity because of that. But that's the end of the movie. I don't know.
Well, Nathan, okay, so what did you think about it, or what do you have to add to Conlon's?
Well, I mean, I kind of like. They were going for an interesting look. They were kind of recreating the weird counterculture that like existed in the 70s and 80s in Berlin. Like I saw that, and then it had this kind of, like Conlon said, generic Blade Runner look. Yeah, I didn't understand the greater story because the only thing that resembled law enforcement here were American military police looking for AWOL soldiers. And so it was all kind of like the background was sort of confusing, and I couldn't really. I thought the writing was really muddled in this for the overall story. Now the characters I liked, because the guy playing the mute, like, okay, you're cutting off 70% of his ability to act because he can't speak, so he has to spread that around. The black guy that talked like a Russian, that was an interesting.
Is that Maxim?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Paul Theroux character, Justin Theroux, child molesty doctor was
Donald Duck.
Yeah, and everyone should have known that guy was a child molester. Like there were all kinds of clues, and then Paul Rudd did a great job as just an angry. And I figured out pretty quick he was the bad guy. I didn't know what, but he seemed like someone who was just personally out of control.
I was saying I was like speculating on. It's like I'm not sure, like, how much did he love his daughter, or how much did he just want to be in control of her? Because he was just like leaving her with prostitutes as babysitters and stuff like that. But
I call the weird black transsexual. Hey, could you watch her for a little bit? I gotta go do something. Oh, sure.
But also he's doing all this to like win control of it, but also he's doing a lot of dangerous shit and fucking being the shit and doing weird surgeries to people to get money so he can get a new life so he can run away with his daughter. But you don't, like, again, I don't know how much that's control or love.
Yeah. So the characters were fine. The way the movie looked was, kind of interesting. I understood what they were trying to do. It was like that neon noir type look. Maybe a little overblown. They didn't quite have the budget to make it.
Well, it looked like a TV budget, or like Altered Carbon kind of looked similar, but Altered Carbon probably looked better than this.
Yeah, well, Altered Carbon also had an immersive story, and Altered Carbon was one of those that it took me a year and a half to watch it because I hated the first 4 episodes, and then it really stomped on the gas and got good. Because I didn't understand when they said that got picked up for another season. I was like, after watching the first 4, I was like, why? And then I watched the whole thing. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, they did it. But anyway, back to this is like the characters, sort of like the look of the movie. I could see right away what they were trying to do, what their cultural touchstones were, and what they were trying to recreate. Did not like the story. It offered no surprises. It just seemed like it was just like a mess. It's like we're going to go from here to here to here, and we're going to have this long extended search story for this girl that's, again, could have been resolved fairly quickly.
Well, it almost seemed like they were shooting a miniseries and then like it has to be a movie and then like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's like they shot 6 hours of a TV show and then had to make a 2-hour movie out of it.
If I was a guessing man, because I usually don't read a lot about these movies before I talk about them because I don't want to repeat someone else's review, but if I was a betting man, I'd say there was a lot of production problems on this movie. And a lot of going in and re-editing stories and maybe even some reshoots even. I don't know, but this seemed... Because I know...
I don't know if this is a ground-up Netflix one or it's one of those like Netflix savior movies.
This is like a Netflix dumpster movie. Like, yeah, we'll distribute it. And this also was financed for like UK Film Council and the Berlin Film something, so it had a bunch of European financing, and we're going to throw some American actors in there, and because I know what the guy did with Moon, and I know what he did with what was the other
Time
movie
Code?
about the simulation thing?
Time Code?
Let me look.
I thought it was Time Code. The one with Jake Gyllenhaal, we has to go back in time and
Source
stop
Code.
his
Source code.
source code. Right.
Because I was like, time code. Like,
Yeah. I really liked Moon. I thought Source Code was, again, it interested me, surprised me. Never watched Warcraft, and I didn't even know. I had to look this one up. It's like there's all these Moon references in it. It's like, oh, it's because it's Duncan Jones' movie. So I know he makes good movies. This seemed to me like a troubled movie, though, and it comes through. I could be wrong. Maybe this was the movie they intended to make, but if so, it's like great characters, great character development, really weird story that didn't hold my interest strongly. I got all the tracks rusted and painted on my Tiger while I was able to. I was excited to watch a movie, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get anything done on this model.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily want to call it a bad movie. I just think like it has its successes and it has its failures.
Yeah, exactly what I would say. It's like this wasn't just complete garbage front to back, but the strength was the characters, the weakness was just the structure and the overall story.
But I know you wanted to defend it, so after we've
Well-
made the land barren for you to pick from.
not so much defend it, but just
Well, I remember, like you said that like critics hated it, and it was like
Yeah.
you thought it was a good movie. So.
I thought it was a good movie.
But,
It
like,
wasn't-
what was the
okay,
critic
it wasn't-
consensus that you're like
It
you're
wasn't
kind of
the part where, yes, I agree with you guys that it's very much like, yeah, everybody does the fucking dirty neon look now, so it's kind of overused, and maybe they should have put some more light in there to spruce it up a little bit and make it a little bit different. But also, what really hurts this movie is you don't care about he's looking for his girlfriend because, yes, it's kind of a one-sided relationship, and it doesn't really seem like she wants to be with him, but he's totally in love with her and can't live without her. And she's kind of the reason it seems like he decided to abandon his community and take the plunge here and everything else. But at the same time, there's maybe like 1 minute of dialogue with them together, and then everything else is like flashbacks or scenes with her, but not him. And there's not a lot between them to have.
yeah, she's out of the
on
movie
screen.
pretty quickly.
Yeah, so
Surprised at that, actually.
I mean, how can you build a good relationship and a good driving plot on that when there's barely any part of the relationship?
Yeah.
It's almost like having a movie like Liam Neeson's Taken, where it's only like he drops his daughter off at the penthouse and then she gets taken and you never hear anything from her the rest of the movie. And so you're like, why does he care so much about this random girl he dropped off?
Just
to?
an hour and a half, Liam Neeson making coffee. It's like, I wonder where she is.
I mean, you have to develop that in your story to get people to give a shit about where the story's going.
Yeah.
Especially when it's predominantly about finding the girlfriend for the first half, but then it also works into taking care of this kid and also taking care of these people that are like Paul Rudd's character and the child molester that are legitimately horrible people and probably need to be taken care of.
Yeah, and I got a weird MASH vibe off of like Paul Rudd and,
Oh, yeah,
Duck.
I think that's what they were. 'Cause
Yeah.
Hawkeye and one was the other guy.
Yeah, because they were in the army together as like Doc. Cause there's like a symbol that's on his knife sheath that's also on Duck's arm, which I think was like when they were in the army together.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I want to defend about the movie, is that I think it makes sense for what he goes through because, like you guys said, very limited performance, can only really make facial movements and speak with your body, not anything else. But at the same time, okay, you guys bring up like there's no cops in the movie, but I think one that also tidies up the scenes a little bit better because you don't have some other source besides MPs, the other character,
Well,
and the
yeah,
daughter. So it helps cut things a little bit more directly, but also at the same time, like the Amish are known for not wanting to really involve outsiders,
Yeah.
being cut off from society, and being loners.
Well, it was like the thing
So-
where it's like he goes to a library to try to figure things out, which like
Yeah.
that's the low tech thing. Although that library is total bullshit because like it will only accept voice commands. Like they don't have like disabilities in the future. Nothing's worked out for that. Like
Well,
fuck
you have
you,
to
you're
create some
mute.
fake roadblock. But at the same time, like his struggles with technology, but also you're talking about the voice box he puts in at the end of it. but I think it's him since it starts off the movie where he's very much adamant of like, oh, he left behind the Amish and he's trying to adapt. But he does woodworking. He does everything low tech. He's even a server or bartender, so he doesn't even do a high tech job.
Yeah.
So it's like him, I think, slowly adapting to just being a part of normal society during the whole movie.
Yeah.
Because now he has
Well,
to
also, I thought like I said on paper, I thought him struggling with his Amish roots would seem interesting, but also like I said, like
I think it was just a way,
I don't care
I think it
if
was
you
just
violate Amish traditions because I think they're stupid.
I think it was just a way for them to pace it better and make
Yeah.
conflict where there wasn't any to begin with.
Well, like I said, like you put
Yeah.
that on paper, it's like this Amish guy's in the future. Isn't that fucked up? It's like, how does he do anything? And like you do the movie,
But yes,
and he's mute. Like, holy fuck!
but like Paul Rudd's character is probably like the standout performance besides Alexander Skarsgård's character. I mean, I could tell the whole movie like something was really off about him. Like he seems really on edge or just weird.
Yeah.
And you think it's harmless because he just has a weird sense of humor.
Yeah,
That is-
I like the part where they're in the coffee shop and he's like, there's no table service, and he walks over and he's like, oh, 1 sec. And it's just like Paul Rudd being Paul Rudd for like half. It's like you just don't expect that. You like him in the beginning, and then you learn to like, oh, he's an abusive piece of shit.
Yeah.
But you still kind of like him because you know him as a person, sort of. And then like when you see the complete person, it's like more uglier than like what you expect.
I know, but I think it actually is a very good template for an actual villain
Yeah.
in a movie because nobody does that. It's either they're all evil from the get go and there's no way to empathize with them. There's no cause to try and get on their side.
Or
But
there's a
this-
sudden churn.
Yeah. And this one, there's no turn. It's like as soon as everything's laid out in front of you, like this makes total fucking sense. There's no reason that I should double think this or like this is him just being a different character now.
Yeah.
No, it's totally complicit, and the whole thing with him defending his buddy and his buddy defending him the entire time. That's total military tradition. Like they're in the same unit, they're in the same combat zone.
Well, yeah, that's like
so they're
the
gonna
really
have each
interesting.
other's backs the whole time.
The really interesting thing is like at the end, he lets him die.
Yeah.
He's stabbed in the throat, and literally the next scene he's doing throat surgery. So obviously he could have saved him.
Yeah.
But he is incredibly mad that he had to die, and he wants to get revenge by giving this guy a voice to say he's sorry. Like that's weird and interesting and fucked up.
But like,
And there's like the weird, and it's kind of like weirdly happy at the end. It's like dude, like your girlfriend's like just laid out in a forest somewhere. There's 2 dead bodies in the house. Somebody has to explain this shit. You're in France in a stolen car
and then he just killed the child
with the dead
molester.
guy's
Yeah.
car.
Killed the child molester guy at pretty much the end of the movie. And,
Yeah.
I mean, but where else do you end that movie? I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
know.
not. I wouldn't say it's a happy ending, but it's definitely not a bad.
Well,
ending.
it plays it off as a happy ending. Like everyone's smiling. He has a weird voice. The kid's smiling. Like we're gonna bring you to grandma. It's like, dude, there's 3 dead bodies.
Well, the
Yeah, you never saw cops. How's he gonna get caught?
I mean, what are they gonna hear for killing a murderer and a child rapist? It's like doing the world a service. No, I mean, I don't know. Like having the kid in there is a good move, but also a bad move because
No, I don't.
Well, you're
Were
taking-
you assuming that she was a mute also the whole time?
no.
Okay, did she talk before that end scene?
No, I thought she was just more traumatized because maybe that's where her father was bringing the relationship with her.
Okay.
Is because basically like he's kind of fucking all over the place.
Well, I thought
So
that
maybe
was like
she's
kind of
just
like
reserved.
why was it Deirdre or Deandra? I already forgot her name.
Kira?
Yeah, Nadira. Like I thought that was maybe why she was attracted to Alexander Skarsgård's character is because he was mute and so was her daughter, but that didn't turn out to be the case.
No, I just figured because that was kind of the one tell almost that maybe something wasn't right with him is that she was kind of just reserved and silent around him. Because I mean that's why kids aren't somebody that's like, oh, the parents seem really nice and are normal around him. They're fucking silent all the time. They don't say shit. Like a kid's very active and very off the wall and just very all over the place if they're actually treated right. So it was kind of the one thing to tell you what was beneath the surface at the same time, since
Yeah.
you had no other way to know.
Well, it's like also I think like at some point I think Paul Rudd loves his daughter. He just like is bad at it.
Yeah, he's just a bad parent.
He's a horrible person for whatever reason, and it's not really explained. But he is just maybe it was something that happened in whatever war they
Yeah,
were.
the war. Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's what Duck says is that like he served his time, but he's AWOL, and he's like trying to get So for some reason, he wanted to get the fuck out of the war.
Maybe he just couldn't take it anymore out of him.
Yeah. Yeah, we also don't know the extent of the war, who's fighting, anything.
I mean, especially now in the day of age where all that technology is out there and stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure people just start like stabbing and shooting themselves in trenches or whatever. So yeah, I don't know what the.
What about the muscular, looked like the son of Harvey Keitel, the giant German muscle dude?
Yeah.
Just a weird character, but it's like that guy looks like Harvey Keitel if he lifted weights all his life.
Yeah.
And I've seen him in other things. I think he's like.
Yeah, he's probably a muscle in some Avengers movie or something.
But no, also like the I mean, yes, it was kind of comical, like sometimes the fight scenes, because it's like, yes, he's a woodworker and he's kind of built well, and he seems like he.
This was gonna be my sex bed.
Doesn't like.
I'm gonna beat up a gang with it.
Doesn't like. I mean, nothing about the Amish strikes me with there'd be great hitmen. Like they would be stone cold killers.
You gotta watch Banshee.
Oh, I've heard about that show. I've never watched it.
It's pretty. The first 2 seasons are pretty cool. It's like I never thought of this as a villain.
It was your saying.
Oh no, I'm just saying is like that part was kind of unbelievable to me, but it's the same thing problem with a relationship in the beginning where it's not really established well enough and you don't really care. Because maybe you need that part more, like at least have some type of, not so much like they need a lot of time together, but something for the start of the better days of the relationship.
Yeah, I think the movie just ends better than it starts, which I think why like when you reflect on it, there's like a lot of good things, but you're like, why was I kind of like low energy throughout the entirety of the movie?
Well, that's the other thing too. It keeps it dark the whole way through, so you're not exuding a lot of energy from the setup of the scenes. Like there's no like huge light source or like I mean, there's action, but it's not well lit, so you don't get a lot of fast-paced motion too. So you're
You
not.
could see him poorly drive a car.
Yeah, you're not putting a lot of energy on the screen to get people pumped up or anything. It's a very mundane affair. So I mean, probably the light isn't like the most light scene in the basement where everybody either fucking dies or dead bodies are found.
No, when they're on the bridge, it's like light out.
Oh, that's right. It is morning on the bridge.
I did like his fighting technique with how I'm going to kill Duck, because he's a swimmer and he's really good at swimming. So he just like jumps up and takes a deep breath and then squeezes this guy till all the air's out of his lungs. Like, okay, we're going to jump off this bridge, and you're going to die because you don't have any air in your body.
And he can't reach his laser thing in his pocket.
Yeah.
And at least that was set up well with the juxtaposition that in his early days he really liked swimming.
Yeah. Yeah, what was it? He like cut his throat when he was swimming when he was a kid or something? Or something weird
Got
happened?
hit by a motorboat. The blades
Oh, yeah, okay.
cut his throat up. Yeah, so that was. Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, it's not one of these movies like, oh God, I hated it, but it was weird considering I know the people that were involved with it. It just kind of struck me as like, this must have been a troubled thing. This is called, what's that called? When your movie sits around for years, and it's like you start and you stop, you start and you stop, like the development malaise.
Oh, yeah, developmental hell.
Yeah, malaise.
Kind
Yeah,
of like Taika Waititi's movies right now.
Oh, isn't he making that Jojo Rabbit movie?
Well, he's making that, but his
Or that's done, right?
his Akira and his
Oh, yeah, he's
other
not
movie
doing that anymore.
are all both either canceled or postponed indefinitely. I
Yeah.
can't remember what the other one was though. It was Akira and something else.
isn't he in a movie where he plays Hitler?
Yeah, that's Jojo the Rabbit
Okay,
with
I
Scarlett
saw.
Johansson. And,
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, why is that guy dressed like Hitler? That's the guy who directed Ragnarok. I didn't get to see the trailer. I'll watch the trailer.
Yeah, it's fun. His kids, it follows a kid and his imaginary friend is Hitler.
Was it during the Second World War?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that at first. It seemed like pretty bizarre that kid just has Hitler as his imaginary friend. I thought it was in like modern times. Like, this seems wildly inappropriate.
How are they getting away with this? Well,
then-
that guy can do it because he's like half Jewish or something.
Well, no, it makes more sense because it's basically like near the end of the war where they're basically like throwing kids on the front line because they don't have anybody else, and then it's like, you know, the whole Jewish, or not Jewish, Nazi youth movement, stuff like that. So
Well, because the other thing he wants to do is the new, because or the Shadows or whatever, like the TV show on FX.
yeah.
He wants to do the werewolf one now called Werewolves or whatever.
Okay.
But he hasn't started that yet. Let's see if I can.
It's like a
No.
fun weirdo. I see that guy interviewed. It's like, oh, he's just nuts.
Yeah.
Where's he from?
yeah.
Like New Zealand or Australia or
New
someplace?
Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay.
I think
Yeah.
he's pretty. I think he's pretty fucking amazing with some of the stuff he's turned out, though. As far as
I
Oh, yeah,
did.
there's something very Monty Python about the stuff he does, but like a modern version of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's over the top, and because I know like he directed Thor Ragnarok, but he said he got a lot of help with that. But you could tell the stuff like with the side characters, like, oh yeah, that was all him. 'Cause it was like the guy who's trying to, you know, like organize the fighters, you know, and the weird conversations about, you know, what kind of
Oh no, Steve's dead. Oh wait, no, he's not. He just wasn't moving.
oh, he directed an episode of The Mandalorian, apparently,
Oh, okay.
and Time Bandits, the TV series.
I didn't know it was a TV series. I love that
Is
movie.
it out or is it a new series?
It didn't say it was out yet.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm guessing not.
My favorite child
because the
movies.
other one was Flash Gordon he was going to do, and then that got postponed too.
I
was
mean,
trying to think of-
Akira getting postponed like that that totally makes sense to me. It's like, oh wait, we're not ready to spend $200 million on a movie that's going to make 40 at the box office.
Yeah.
I would go see that movie a million times. No,
I liked Akira up to a point, the animation, when it became weird tentacle blob monsters. Like, what? Where did the story just took a
Where's the biker gang? That was the cool shit.
Neo Tokyo after the Fourth World War is a great.
the Time Bandits TV show came out in Britain in March. And it has actually, it looks like the same kid from Jojo Rabbit, unless they just pulled the wrong screenshot.
Oh.
So. But,
Yeah, that movie was the. Time Bandits was like my favorite childhood movie. I think I've watched that movie 500 times.
Mine was Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, I wanted that map and everything.
Can't remember.
I remember Time Bandits.
Oh, it didn't. Was it like Adam Savage?
Adam
Didn't
Savage
he make
He
one?
makes one, yeah.
Okay.
You can actually buy it, I think, but it's like
$400.
my childhood wasn't this fucking happy. Okay, I'm spending that kind of money.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that Sam Rockwell was in Jojo Rabbit, too.
Oh yeah.
He's like the uber Nazi guy or whatever. Because there's like one part of the trailer where he's like wearing a fucking cape or whatever, like in a combat zone taking pictures and shit. And it's like, well, either this is made up or somebody's really full of themselves. I don't know which one, but it's probably like the best instance of child soldier comedy I've ever seen. Where it's just like, hey, Joe, and, it's like, and then he fires the Panzerfaust by mistake off into the building or whatever. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
I was gonna say you should watch that Rambo movie. You want to see funny child soldiers?
Which one?
I was. Did you ever see Rambo? The fourth Rambo movie is just called Rambo.
Or he's in Vietnam again, or Cambodia, or something.
Cambodia.
Yeah, my favorite scene in that movie is when they find the blockbuster in the woods, and he sets the bomb on it, and he's running away. And they just show how that bomb like just vaporizes like 400 people.
Yeah, I was just showing him like how wildly violent that movie is to the point it's almost comical.
Yeah, it was like over the top.
Like there's like a part where like there's like a kid running from a fire, a soldier grabs the kid, throws him back in the fire, and it's just like spit take. It's like, that's awful. And then you start laughing.
Get back in the flames. A little model talk real quick. more retro modeling this week for me. This is a 1983 King Tiger model I'm working on. It's not going to end up being black. That's just a primer.
Yeah. Yeah, I make that dark shade undertone.
Yeah, so that's it actually went together pretty good. Just I like that weird 80s plastic, which is not as nearly as forgiving.
Oh,
Kind
is
of-
this the classic Tamiya kit?
Yeah,
Okay.
old ones. Yeah, these are the ones I got for free or bought at sales or whatever. It's like, well, if you want to work on this old stuff, it's like, yeah, I'll always build a free model.
Hey, when's their next meeting or whatever?
You mean the club?
Yeah.
Next month.
Okay.
First
And how was the tournament, or do you want to talk about it?
Oh, the tournament names I went to was kind of shit.
Okay.
It wasn't because I placed like 5th from last, so it wasn't like good that way.
Yeah.
But I also, I wasn't expecting a lot because I wasn't really taking a hugely competitive list to begin with. But at the same time, there was kind of some weird shit going on, as in probably cheating. Because, like, the top guy, like, he was statistically, he was rolling, like, 15 dies, D6s, like, every time he was shooting with multiple things. And statistically, that means, because he has to hit on 4s, so that means half his dice should have not been 4s most of the time. But every time he rolled, there were, like, 1 or 2 out of 15 would not be 4s. And so somebody saw him do that multiple times through multiple games and then called him out on it. And then he changed the brick of dice he was using, and then suddenly he started rolling more normally. And it was like, well, that doesn't seem suspicious at all. Like,
Really loaded dice at the Warhammer tournament?
yeah, that's what it seemed like. Plus, when he was trouncing everybody, he was kind of rubbing it in their faces, which is not a nice thing to do. It's kind of like me, like, beating the shit out of somebody at, like, basketball and be like, you fucking suck at this, don't you?
It's just a 3-year-old kid. I'm trying, mister. Fuck you.
Well, basically, because that was the other
Oh, down, toddler.
That was the other thing, because there's a lot of rules and regulations that go into like what you need for rules and like bringing for like a tape measure and shit like that and dice. There's one guy that like he just brought his army. He didn't have a rule book. He didn't have a tape measure. He had dice, but that was it. And so he was like making up rules off the top of his head. And the guy he was playing against played that army as another army. So he's like, "Are you sure it's not that?" He's like, "No, it's definitely this." And the guy still lost horribly anyway. So, tried blatantly cheating, but still lost.
Fake it till you make it. I didn't make it.
But everybody else there was basically, this was one of their first games ever with a game system, or this game system. So barely anybody knew any of the rules, and there's a whole thing with WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get. So if you have a Space Marine captain with a chainsword and a bolter, and you paid points for it, you better have a Space Marine captain with a fucking chainsword and a bolter. Because I actually played a woman for the first time ever, so that was an accomplishment. She was very nice, but her army was like a mismatch of like, okay, these 5 women have this, and it's like, well, that doesn't look like that at all, but okay. It wasn't like a huge thing. I didn't care because it was just fun, but at the same time, it was like, it was total juxtaposition from what we usually do with our tournaments in Cedar Rapids, because everybody does WYSIWYG, nobody cheats, and if you do, you get kicked out. You don't get fucking like, oh, my bad, oh. And then like the TO was supposed to tell you, because that's his job. He's supposed to settle all rules, bickering, and also like tell you when the match is over, finish scoring, get everybody's scoring right, and post it. Because this is the first time we're using an app to do all this. He didn't tell anybody when the matches were over. He didn't want to settle any debates. You just work it out between you two, and it's like, no, you're supposed to be the rule.
You're adults. You're adults.
It's like you're supposed to be the tiebreaker. So if we don't see eye to eye, you're supposed to be the one that tells us what the fuck we're doing, and it's not working when you're like, no, just figure it out between yourselves. But also, like, he was very shitty about other things too. Like, he wouldn't enforce rules either. So yeah, I missed my lunch period because he didn't tell me the match was over. And so it was like, okay, guys, cool, your lunch period ends in 20 minutes. And it's like, I'm in the middle of Ames with no restaurant around me in walking distance. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm having a bottle of water. But
Old water lunch.
That and everybody that I went with and carpool with. Usually, price support is that everybody pays. Our shop is $15 a head, $20 the day of if you don't pay in advance, and then $5 of each of that goes to free pizza for lunch, and they order pizza and give it out. And then otherwise, you get 15% discount on all the products, but also the first place team gets a prize, and then it's either second and third, or best paint, best sportsmanship, or best like theme for an army, and they all get prizes. And the total payout is the whole spread of what you just paid in for the tournament. So everybody basically pays for somebody else's shit. The comic book shop basically seemed like, oh, this has been laying around here for a while. Here, give this out. And so they gave 3 boxes, and then the first, second, and third player got something. And basically, whatever the first player chose, so you just get a box, and it's all Space Marines, and nobody cared for that. But, so basically, like, they made $250 in fees, and they only paid out like maybe $90 in prize support. So the store pocketed like $160 for hosting a tournament they had nothing to do with. Besides,
All right, the con worked.
Yeah, basically. Plus the the hour and a half drive, hour and a half drive each way, so 3 hours of road time and shit. So it was okay. Oh yeah, and I had I was playing a joke because we went to a Japanese steakhouse after, because it was like one of the only things fucking open. So we go there, and I'm sitting next to the guy that's driving, and he always he has a weird thing where he just like grabs guys' asses and like fucking tries to act gay and shit.
So he just openly molests people. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm talking to a guy I've talked to for a couple of years on my right, and the waiter's coming around taking orders. I'm like, should I put my hand on his and say like, well, we're gonna have this, and then so I do that, but I don't pull it off well because I'm smiling too much the whole time. And he's like, "You fucked it up, Kubitschek." It's like it could have been great, but then the whole time, the people that served us, even the chef on the grill, he's giving out extra food to everybody else except me. I don't get my appetizer, my food order's fucked up, and I don't get extra food. And I'm like, is this because I pretended to be gay, or is this because they think I'm gay? Because either, like, I don't know which one's worse. Like, obviously,
Or maybe they just thought you were fucking with them, and they're like,
maybe. I mean, I don't know.
I'm at work, motherfucker. I'm in jail. Don't fuck with me.
So that was kind of interesting. But otherwise, I had fun with the guys on the trip. It was fun talking shit with them and having a good time. But like the trip itself, like the comic book store is pretty fucking awesome to go check out. Because they had like a million fucking things. It was like a 2-story store.
Huh.
But other than that, it was okay. I probably wouldn't go again.
Yeah, we had our special meeting this week over at the president of the club's house.
Oh, really?
So got our insurance writer sorted out. I guess we're going to have to become a non-profit organization. If you have more than $5,000 of assets or so, thank God they're handling all this. I've just got all the telephone book of instructions on how to be a judge at an IPMS contest. So we're going to have our trial run in January, where we're going to host another club unofficially, and they're going to bring their models, and then we're all going to, well, me and the other people on the judging committee are going to judge them. And then I was like, so do we include the part where we fight in the parking lot afterwards? Because that's happened before. It's like, you didn't like my Panzer model, I'm going to kick your ass.
That seems totally legit.
Oh, there's a reason some of those clubs have like 4 people left in them, because we've got like 40. But it'll all break down into anger. I don't know, like I said, I'm the second youngest person there, and I'm going to be 45 in November.
Well, I don't know.
But the youngest guy there does Warhammer models. That's all he brings in.
Well, good for him, making the older people appreciate newer things, I guess.
It's actually controversial at some of the other clubs, whether you bring and show those, and everyone at this one was like, yeah, you can. They're still models. Why couldn't you? Well, the guys over here don't like it, and they don't allow it in, and it's like, who's being this big of a dick? But then I heard some of those clubs are just the first place friends, where it's like, okay, we're gonna enter all our models, but you judge his this way, I'll judge that way, and I want the most gold medallions at the end of the year or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay. Once that goes on for 5 years, where everyone thinks that you don't have a club anymore because everyone else is like, oh, screw you. So yeah.
Here, I'm gonna show Colin something I wanted to buy at the comic shop, but I didn't have time to because they closed by the time the tournament was done. It was $4 for that, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever because I'm like, that's what Superman needs, something to punch and fly at people.
Yeah, it's Superman in a little comical, like 50s style jet with a mechanical arm punching a dude.
Oh yeah, that's right. He doesn't have a camera over it.
It's like, why doesn't Superman just punch the dude himself?
Well, it's the reason why I own a Captain America comic book where he's a vampire coming out of a coffin. It's just like an interesting conversation piece. Is it worth anything in retail value? No. But is it an awesome art piece?
Comic, didn't Batman carry a revolver?
I think there was a crossover with him and Zorro where I think.
What? Well, early Batman, he had a gun, like real early, like Bob Kane Batman.
Yeah. I mean the first Batman. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the first Batman.
You read Gotham by Gaslight, right? That one was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. I think that's because we read Superman Red Sun. I think that's sort of a. Well, I mean, comics do this all the time where it's like, let's put him in a different universe. And wasn't there a samurai one they did with Batman recently? They just basically
Yeah.
just put Batman through all of time.
Yeah, I wanted to actually watch the movie of that one because I never read the comic book, but the movie actually seemed like it was pretty good. Because I've read the Batman Hush one because that one just came out on video. Because it seems like they're just like going around like, oh yeah, this is a popular comic. They just put this on cartoon now. Like Batman Beyond just got like a re-release on the Blu-ray from all its old stuff too.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to buy that, but $90 for like a 2-season run cartoon from the 2000s seems like a steep asking price.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I think I'll wait for that one to come down. But they had a $500 life-size Shredder doll if you wanted to buy that.
No.
They also had a $2,000 rubber foam dragon head on a mantle that was falling apart that I don't know why anybody would pay $2,000 for. They had every Funko Pop figure you could ever want, which is why I bought Dwight and Michael.
So
figures.
zero.
Yeah. They had like every board game. They had like a million fucking comic books, trades, and old style. Because I actually, legitimately for my collection, since I have a lot of old Iron Fist and Power Man comics Marvel gave me, there was the first issue of Iron Fist and Power Man ever. It was $22, so it's not like super rare or expensive or anything. But I was like, oh, that'd be really nice to buy. And then they told us, like the last minute, 5 minutes before the shop closed, my ride was leaving. Oh, everybody gets 15% off if you want to go in and buy something right now. I'm like, well, I'd love to, but I can't have the fucking time. Goddamn anything to go in and get anything. So yeah, it was. I bought one comic there because I think I rushed during my lunch break to at least buy that. It was the Sex Criminals Next trade volume, which I read and I was like, wow, this sucked.
Really completed the trip. It's like memories.
So, I didn't find a new comic to recommend to anybody on that trip, unfortunately, because there was so much stuff there. I was like, I need like a whole day to go through this and probably find really good stuff to pick out and bring here, because unfortunately there's just too much to pick through and not enough time. But Cedar Rapids really needs a store of that caliber, but sadly all we have is Alter Ego, and they have decent stuff. They don't have anything bad. They just don't have anywhere near the selection, which is kind of sad. But Mayhem Comics has a store in Des Moines and Ames, so I can't see why they couldn't have something like Iowa City or freaking Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, I would say it makes sense, or at least Quad Cities probably.
I mean, Iowa City's comic book shop's pretty decent. Better than Alter Ego is in Marion.
Well,
Yeah.
Vault of Midnight in downtown Ann Arbor, which is a 3-story comic book store.
So what,
Basement, main level, and a rooftop, or a second story.
so what you're saying is I should spend next summer at your house.
Well, if you got a lot of money to spend on comic books, they have them. Well, I've been there once, but
Oh. Well, I would just go there for the experience and buy probably like a couple $100 of comic books, but yeah.
man, look at all this cool shit. Did you buy anything? Fuck no.
Can't afford
But
that
it
shit.
looked cool as shit.
They had some, I didn't know Pop Figures was doing like fucking like gigantic display pieces now. because they have like a Scooby-Doo mansion with Scooby-Doo next to it and shit. Like that was a pretty big figurine thing. And I'm like, okay, I guess this makes sense. And they had like a giant It figurine from the new movie. Like when I say giant, I mean like it was like the size of like probably like came up like 2 or 3 feet fucking tall. And it's like, okay, this seems like a ginormous waste of plastic, but
Yeah, some people just like to display shit. So
yeah. I took mine out of the box because I'm a fucking man.
another thing I did, like, there's this when the Spider-Man, I think 2 or 3 came out. They had this like really articulate Spider-Man where it's like each finger had like an articulating point, like real fingers. And I took fishing wire and I made like the spaghetti strand spider webs from like Seth or Todd McFarlane like used to draw.
Oh, okay.
And I put 3 strands together and then like tied it off in segments.
Yeah.
And then I had Spider-Man swinging from the ceiling down here. So. And then there was a tornado warning, and then that got knocked down, and then it's been lost ever since. Actually, no, I think I sold it on eBay for like $40. It's like, that's about what I spent for it.
Somebody will buy it.
Well, one of these next times we can talk about Red Sun, and I can. There's some comic books I'd like to revisit because as soon as you talk about Spider-Man, it made me think is the next movie adaptation for Spider-Man that Sony wants to do is Kraven's Last Hunt, which is a very cool and weird fucking story. It's basically about Kraven dying of fucking cancer and he wants to kill Spider-Man before he dies. So he basically like sends his whole family out to kill him with him and like bring down everybody Spider-Man's associated with, but also like ruin Spider-Man's life at the same time. And it's like, you're gonna kill him, isn't that ruining his life enough? Apparently not. It's like
I want you to beg for death.
I think if you get trades, I think it's like through 3 different values of trades. It's a pretty sizable arc. There's also one where Dr. Octavius switches consciousness with Peter Parker, and Peter Parker is trapped in Dr. Octopus's
Yeah,
dead body.
it's Superior Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, Superior Spider-Man. I'd say it's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's the best Spider-Man arc, but it's pretty solid.
See, Nathan was thumbing through some papers. I didn't know if he wanted to show us something or not.
Oh, this is the judging guideline.
Oh, shit.
I gotta print those off and make margin scroll notes.
So what do you get for being a judge? The respect?
Just the thanks and love of your peers. And
Does anybody ever like blown up at you or giving you shit for a bad rating?
I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you did last time.
He has that to look forward to.
I let everyone know what my skill level is. It's like, okay, on a 1 to 10 scale, my skill level is 1. Committee. Okay, like I said, everyone here is a more accomplished modeler than me. Well, there's guidelines. I'm pretty good at rules and stuff, so we'll see. I'm not the only one. There's going to be a senior judge who's done it a while, and then other people. But like I said, we're talking like next year, maybe towards the middle end of the year, trying to do stuff. So.
I mean, I wouldn't say you're a 1. I mean, from stuff you put on here and built, that's a lot more skill than putting together a GW kit where you have like directions for everything and you can't possibly fuck it up unless you literally fuck up the pieces as you cut it out.
Well, I mean, when I say that, it's just when you see the depth of experience and the investment because I've been over to some of these guys' houses and it's like, yeah, I have an airbrush, a paint booth, a bunch of paints, and a bunch of models. But most of these guys have been doing this longer than I've been alive, and just the stuff they can produce out of 6 months is just like, oh, I couldn't do that with 5 years. A lot of it is I don't have some of it is I don't have the tools, because I am kind of cynical about what I call going $500 deep on a model.
Yeah.
It's like, because when I built that Millennium Falcon, whenever people see that, or and I have a bunch of pictures like, oh, that's amazing. I said, it is amazing, but it was also an amazing model too. I said that was one of those things like you could fuck that up, but you really have to try. It wasn't. But the guys that can take like really basic models and dress them up and fabricate and then weather them to where they look like you know, if you did a camera perspective on them, you wouldn't know if it was real, if it was a model. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. And the people that do like the deep weathering, and just the guys that are just insanely skilled, like the people that build models for people as a job, like that. You know, there's people like that around here. And
why don't you say like some guys are like retired and they literally have like nothing but their entire day to throw at a model?
yeah, most of the people I'm with are retired or very close to it. And yeah, and then some of them have crazy jobs, like the guy who designed. He was an engineer. He designed the machines that keep your heart and lungs working. He lives over in Ann Arbor, and he was an engineer that engineered equipment like that. Now, you're not going to beat that guy because, you know, his level of precision and expertise is absolutely insane. But he's also 74 years old, so you don't have to beat him. You just got to wait. You're just waiting, especially when like half the club goes out to smoke at our mid-meeting break. It's like, okay, now we're gonna start moving up the brackets, unless I do too much beef tallow in the next 4 years.
No, just switch them all to vaping. That'll clear out a lot of them.
Yeah, that's I tried that for like a few weeks, and I just decided, okay, I'm just gonna quit smoking. This is stupid. What's this robot cock I'm smoking now? My thing. Some people like it, but I never got into it. I just chew the gum when I feel anxious. So basically, whenever I have to talk to anyone, I'm just like, hold on a second, let me chew some gum. Okay. Now you can talk to me and I won't scream. All right. Well, it's bedtime. So this week for our just high energy podcast, we'll pick up Red Sun next week. We would have done it this week, but you know, the gods of technology weren't with us again. So anyway, this week,
nor will they be with us next week.
Well, yeah, better next week. But remember, what did you say? Future you is always the best you. So future podcast will be better than this one for no discernible reason. We're just going to say it, and we're going to smile and believe it. So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Colin.
Andrew.
Goodbye, America.